The vote to approve partition by the United Nations was met with almost universal joy in the land of Israel. A dream had almost been achieved. Golda Meir, the future Prime Minister, spoke to the crowds in front of the Jewish Agency building in Jerusalem. She said, "For 2,000 years we have waited for our deliverance. Now that it is here, it is so great and wonderful it surpasses human words. Jews, Mazel Tov." However, many understood the greatest challenges lay ahead. David Shatiel, the commander of the Haganah, understood it well when he wrote in his diary the night of the 29th, after the partition vote, "None of us knows what might happen tomorrow." The next day, a Jaffa-based band attacked the bus with Jewish passengers. On December 5th, the British cabinet announced that they would pull out all of their troops from the country by May 15th, and that in the interim, they would be neutral in the fight between Arabs and Jews. By and large, they followed that dictum, although both sides claimed that they were biased to the other side. During December, many mixed areas exchanged populations, and demarcation lines became clear. It is estimated that during this period 100,000 Arabs left the country, or left their homes in the mixed towns and went back to their ancestral villages. At the beginning of January, members of the Arab Liberation Army, which was comprised primarily of Arabs living in the Mandate who had been trained by surrounding Arab states, entered the country without British interference. On January 10th, they attacked the settlement of Kfar Zold, but they were repulsed. Jewish settlements throughout the country were isolated, and major efforts had to be expended to resupply them. Even Jerusalem could only be resupplied at a great cost. One of the most famous and tragic situations occurred in the effort to send reinforcement to the settlement of Kfar Etzion near Jerusalem, which had been cut off from Jewish forces. A platoon of 35 soldiers was sent by foot to reinforce the Etzion settlements. The force was discovered along the way and ambushed. All 35 soldiers were killed. The force became known as the Lamed Hey, for 35 in Hebrew. By March, the tide of the battle seemed to be turning against the Jews. The road to Jerusalem had become impassable. During this period, the Jewish forces did not take the offensive, primarily maintained a defensive posture, only undertaking offensive operations on a local basis. As a result of these military setbacks, the United States began to waver in its support of the partition plan. The United States UN ambassador, who was seemingly acting without the approval of President Truman, called for a delay in the partition plan, and instead placed the mandate on the United Nations trusteeship. With the situation deteriorating, Ben Gurion demanded the army move to the offensive to open the road to Jerusalem. This became possible thanks to successful smuggling of large quantities of small arms into the country. For the first time, the troops did not have to share rifles and machine guns. The first major offensive was called Operation Nachshon. The purpose of the operation was to capture a corridor along the road to Jerusalem and thus secure this route. The major effort along the road was the fight for the Castel, which the Haganah won after a fierce battle on April 10th. During the battle, Abdul al-Qadir Husseini, the Mufti military leader, was killed. This effectively ended the involvement of the Mufti's forces in the war. Capture of the Castel was, however, only one of the objectives. The goals were to capture all of the Arab villages that had been used as bases for fighters to attack the convoys to Jerusalem. Those villages were quickly captured, but it was a period of extreme brutality on both sides, with civilian deaths to both Jews and Arabs. In the north, the Arab Liberation Army began a concentrated assault on Mishmar HaEmek. It was defeated. The forces were then forced to withdraw to Jenin. The defeat destroyed the morale of the Arab villages in the area, and soon most of the inhabitants began to flee. In mid-April, Haganah launched Operation Yiftach, whose goal was the liberation of the Upper Galilee. On April 18th, the Palmach captured Tiberias. On April 21st, as British forces withdrew from the city of Haifa proper to concentrate their remaining forces in the port area, a brief battle for the city ensued, and was quickly won by the Haganah. By May 10th, the Arab parts of Safad were captured, and on May 16th, Akka was also captured. On May 13th, Jaffa was captured. On the Jerusalem front, the Palmach successfully seized most of the major British installations in Jerusalem. However, on May 14th, the Etzion bloc fell to the attackers from the Arab Legion. The period leading up to independence was one of successful consolidations. All of the areas allotted to the Jewish state in the Galilee were firmly under Jewish control, as well as some of the areas that were to have been part of the Arab state. Coastal plain was secure, as was Jewish Jerusalem. The major areas of concern remained the road to Jerusalem, as well as many of the isolated settlements in the south.